Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to talk about the book American Tacos with author José Ralat. If you have questions for Jose, please post them in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the program. So, Jose is a taco editor at Texas Monthly and the writer behind the nationally renowned Taco Trail blog. He has written for the Dallas Observer, Texas Highways, D Magazine, Cowboys and Indians, and Eater. So welcome, Jose, and would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and about the book?
Hi, thanks for having me. Well, I live in Dallas. I've lived in Texas for more than 10 years. I'm not originally from here. I moved from New York, but please don't get the rope. And I'm just a family man with a yard and a house, and I never want to give those up after leaving New York.
And do you want to talk a little bit
about the book? The book. So the book is, I came to food writing accidentally. I think a lot of food writers say that. I started in New York doing freelance work for a defunct Alt Weekly and doing their cheap eats section. And then we moved down here. We didn't have jobs. So I got a call from the Dallas Observer's editor at the time, Mark Donald, who's been a great champion of mine. He's now at UNT. And Mark asked me, well, if I liked tacos. Who doesn't like tacos? Is what I told him. He said, great. Pitch me something on Monday, and that became Taco Trail, and it became my social media handle, and it was a weekly taqueria review. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew that I loved tacos. I had lived in a Mexican neighborhood in Brooklyn, and I would eat the tacos as I shopped, and one morning my Texan wife made me breakfast tacos, and I don't know who I love more, breakfast tacos or her, but obviously her. But and then I just started pitching more and getting more opportunity. And as someone brought up the idea of me writing a book, and I had never really thought of that until that moment. And I asked myself, what hasn't been written? Because why write something if it's not to add to the literature? And it's a national survey of regional American tacos, and that's what the book is. The book starts out with my personal experience coming to the subject matter and understanding that tacos developed here when it was Mexico, at the same time as it did south of the Rio Grande, when the border was put in place. That meant that tacos here developed on a different trajectory because of ingredient availability, population shifts, population changes. Suddenly there was a border where once there wasn't, and those reflect and represent their own time and place, just like they do in Mexico, and they reflect what people want to eat. And I decided to break it down to see what was indigenous or indicative of geographic regions or specific cities. And I traveled to 38 cities in 3 countries across the North American continent, and only got sick once. And it wasn't in Mexico. It was in Canada.
Ooh. So I have a favorite passage from the book, and I'm going to read it, and then I'd like us to kind of talk about it, because I think it really kind of sums up what I think kind of the love behind the book. At least that's how it reads to me. So most of all, I've learned that tacos are a gift to be appreciated and enjoyed with friends and strangers. No other food in America brings people together like tacos. Nothing is fully itself until it nestles in a tortilla, and everything ends up in a tortilla. I would like to think that consuming tacos makes for better people and making for a better taco country. And America is taco country. So, we, especially recently, there's so many different ways to eat tacos now. And I think it's really interesting how it kind of started as, you go have crunchy tacos somewhere and they just be part of, the dinner special, to where now there's all of these chains and individual restaurants that's all they serve now. Why do you think that has become so popular? And is it just here in America that it's that popular, or is it also that popular in Mexico?
So, in Mexico, taco is almost like a national sport. There's an informal economy built around street food there, and the taco is Mexico's gift to the world. We're just lucky enough to live in a part of the world that was once Mexico, and we can say this is ours too. Here in Texas and in the borderlands. As far as here, crunchy taco that created the foundation for the current popularity. The earliest recipes, going back to the late 19th century, all called for frying tacos. Taco Bell is credited with the majority of the influence. But I think what's more important is the financial collapse of 2008. That had people looking for a cheaper or more affordable option for dinner or for food in general. And I once listed all of what I considered at the time the best taquerias in Dallas, where I live. And all but 2 opened after 2008. I don't think, none were owned by Anglos. at that point. But and that's changed. That list has changed quite a bit. But now I think tacos have always been a part of Texas culture. Uh, we're so used to eating on the go when you're late to work. You bring breakfast tacos. Uh, I think that's really important. But now, after 2008, every year the taco's been more and more popular, and that has allowed for a lot of great research, a lot of great bringing to light what otherwise wouldn't have been remembered, or and to build a better perspective and appreciation of the food. But basically, everyone thinks they're tasty, so the restaurants will follow.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you talk about it being connected to the crash, because as you were talking about that, one of the things I was thinking about was food trucks, right? I mean,
Fort
right,
Worth has a lot of them.
right, and how popular they are. But I never thought about the fact that I don't really remember those pre 2008, and that it's also possibly an easier way to get your restaurant up and running without the overhead of the building and a lot of that stuff. And but I would also think that food trucks also helped push the taco movement as well. I mean,
Oh, for
like,
sure.
right? Because Torchy's, we all know about Torchy's, that started in a food truck in Austin, and so I hadn't really correlated between the two of those, but I think that's really an interesting thing to think about. And for all of the not great things that came from that, how that kind of increased culinarily some really fascinating food, and in many ways things that we probably would never have been able to try before. And so I think that's really interesting. And I think I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A in the chat. And as we, I'll either ask them at the end, or we'll kind of ask them as we go along. And so I want to kind of talk about kind of your research process, but also some interesting things that you talked about that I thought were really interesting, that I think kind of tie into to the research. So you talked a lot about the indigenous part of that, and some of that kind of relates to the fry bed parts that you talked about, and the difference between corn and flour tortillas. And I think that that's really something we don't always think about when we're eating, right? We just think about, oh, I like it this way, or I like it that way. So can you talk about doing the research about what tacos traditionally were, kind of what we've morphed them into, and why there are some camps that believe like it's not real if it's in fry bed, or if it's in flour, and about reclaiming their food.
Yes, I think that you should eat your taco however you want, as long as it has a tortilla or flat bread type product, like fry bread, which, as I explained in the book, it integrates what the Native Americans were already doing with corn, and with potentially their own flours, and what they had, and that's innovation and naturally tinker. Unfortunately, that was under some really terrible circumstances, unforgivable ones. That being said, how I research and get to that is I get curious about something, or I might get mad at something. One thing is that, well, first of all, yeah, eat whatever you like as long as you like it, as long as it's good for you. Don't let anyone tell you that you're wrong, because you're not. Second of all, a lot of people say flour is not Mexican. That's not true. Wheat was introduced by the Spanish, yes. But, and it was intended to force out corn. But here's the thing that Mexican food does. It wins. It doesn't let anything overwhelm it. It absorbs it. It allows it to become part of the tradition by adapting it. And so wheat was grown in the north where the climate was and remains favorable for 400 some odd years. And that was in Mexico. That tradition continues today. You can see it in breakfast tacos. You can see it in burritos. In northern Mexican states, many tacos automatically come on flour. It's the default tortilla. So how do I get to all this? I read, or someone upsets me. Something that I read upsets me or strikes my fancy. So that's how I came to spend 8 hours researching the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office database. I hate taco holders a lot. And I know what the history was. So I hours researching when was the first taco holder patented, and how did that evolve into what we have today and into its various modern incarnations. And along the way, I have collected quite a few taco holders that were gifted to me by friends as a joke. And I have this little library of memorabilia and tchotchkes that include taco holders. I really want that unicorn one. Someone's got to give me that one, because I don't want that on my credit card. No, I think it'd be great. And my wife really wants me to get it too, but I just haven't bitten the bullet on that one.
So you talked about how Mexican food, it's not overwhelmed. It evolves. It pulls those extra influences in. So this is actually a question from the audience that kind of tails into that. So have you noticed any distinct differences in tacos between states or regions? And how does that relate to Mexican food pulling in other influences to evolve?
Yes. So short answer is yes. There are plenty of changes and the differences, especially over time, depending on population shifts and what's available at the market, what is wanted at the market, and cultural exchange. There aren't a lot of Korean taco places in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but there are a lot in Los Angeles where the taco developed, and that came about because Mexicans and Koreans were living side by side, trading ingredients. In Houston, you have many South Asians from India and Pakistan, and they have created Indomex. And that one's especially unique because it plays on the stew preparations that are so prevalent in Mexican home style cooking. They're just called guisados in Spanish, and they're my favorite style of taco. They're typically eaten for breakfast, come on corn with rice and a stewed preparation. The rice soaks up the sauce. So there are easy connections that are made sometimes, and then there are that leave you baffled. And those are typically when a chef says the tortilla is nothing but a blank canvas and I am the artist. No, that's not really how it works. Just like anything, just like studying anything, like library science or painting, to get back to the canvas metaphor, there is a tradition, there's history, there is responsibility. You need to learn those things, you need to respect those things, and then you can play at that level, right? Immigrant populations already seem to understand that, and they are open to new ideas because they're open to this new experience that is our country, and that is wonderful. In one thing that I have found so fascinating is that you'll hear Mexican immigrants say that crispy tacos are not Mexican. Well, what they mean is the Taco Bell taco. But there's a long and proud tradition of fried tacos in Mexico. They're called tacos dorados. Them on the border, they're popular. Flautas are the one thing that unites every border town. They're found everywhere. I'm told that you can eat them with, or that they can be made with flour, but I've never seen one. I don't believe it, and I think that's where I draw the line on that one.
I've seen them frozen, but
Okay.
not. You can buy them frozen.
Okay.
In the
Yeah.
frozen, in like Deli Mix or whatever that brand is, but I've never seen them in in a restaurant. I've only ever seen them in the frozen food aisle.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a particular type of crispy taco that grew out of Kansas City that is a direct product of Mexicans living side by side with Italians. Mexicans worked on the railroad. They were originally the vaqueros that came through Texas and brought the cattle to Kansas City. They ended up working on the railroad. Italians were meat processing plant workers, but they lived side by side. And what happened was the Mexican taco dorado, what was transformed, there was no queso cotija or queso fresco, but there was Parmesan, and that now gets poured over these fried tacos, and they're exquisite. I love them.
Well, and it's funny because you talked about taquitos. So I lived in San Diego for quite a few years, and my favorite thing to eat is rolled. They call them rolled tacos in San
Yes.
Diego. They're not, but they're essentially flautas, except that they serve them covered with stuff. Right? They have lettuce and cheese and guacamole sour cream. It's not guacamole and sour cream. It's guacamole and sour cream mixed together. And when I go to visit friends, they're like, how many hole in the wall places are we gonna have to eat while you're here? And I'm like, I don't know. But we'll eat raw tacos at 3 a.m. if because those places are open.
Yeah. You know, there's a Spanish word for that, and that is plata ahogada, a drowned plata. And they're a specialty of El Paso. No place in Fort Worth that I know of has them. No place in Dallas either, now that I think about it. But I'm in Austin right now, and there is this little trailer about the size of an old single room occupancy boarding house quarter, and they make El Paso style rolled tacos, drowned in sauce and covered in cheese.
Oh,
Oh.
yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because my friends would make fun of me when we lived in San Diego because I'm not a fish eater, and most of the Mexican food in San Diego is Baja, so it's a lot of fish and seafood. And so when we lived there, I was not a huge fan of eating in a lot of Mexican food restaurants in San Diego. I was also like 19 and dumb, because I think I'd be much more adventurous to try some things now than I was then. But about 10 years ago, they got an On the Border, which, you know, On the Border is terrible.
Which is from Dallas.
Right. But they got it On the Border. And so now every time I go to San Diego, they're like, do we need to eat it On the Border? Because, like, you know, it's because I would never eat Mexican food when I was there. And I'm like, you know, I would never eat it on the border at home. But, you know, if we're gonna have Mexican food, I'd rather eat it on the border here than some other places. Because I remember the biggest thing about when we lived in San Diego that I was not happy about was no queso. You know,
what a
talk
travesty.
about Mexican food being regional.
Mm-hmm.
lots of tableside guacamole. And particularly, I lived there in the early 90s. It was a huge trend at the time for tableside guacamole. Every restaurant in town did tableside guacamole, but nobody had queso. And I was like, food is terrible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's queso and breakfast tacos in Los Angeles now, opened by Texans. And there's a place in Barrio Logan in San Diego that serves a breakfast taco. It's called Salud, and it's right on Logan. It's not far from the park.
So we've kind of talked about the reading type of research we do.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the tasting part of the research.
It's not as much as you think it would be, although it is considerable. Like I said earlier, I visited 38 cities in 3 countries on this one continent. And I ate at more than 1,000 places. I didn't count the tacos. At some point, you just got to stop counting. When I traveled for the book, I did not seek out what some people would consider traditional Mexican food. I sought out what would probably be considered characteristic of that time and place. So when I was traveling across the South, I was looking for fried chicken tacos and shrimp and grits and collard greens with chipotle meatballs, things that blended the 2 great corn cultures. And I think that is probably the most important American style of taco after the crispy taco. And there are no fried surmex tacos that I know of. And I have eaten at quite a few places in Nashville. In 7 hours, I ate at 12 places. I was in Chicago for 27 hours, and I hit 17 places. And that includes sleep time. And it was 9 degrees.
How do you eat? How are you able to eat that many places and not be full?
I don't eat all of it. I will eat typically, well, up to half of the taco, and I determined that based on my methodology. So before I travel anywhere, even now, working as Texas Monthly's taco editor, I create a spreadsheet that lists the name, the address, the hours, website, if there's one, phone number, if there's one. I list them, categorize them by city, color code them, and depending on how many I'm going to visit that day can influence how much of each taco I eat. And if they're amazing, I don't care. I'm going to eat all of them. I would eat. I will eat all of it, and I think that. Well, I wouldn't advise everyone try this because I have 10,000 calorie days. Uh, Sometimes don't do that, please, because I don't want you to have a heart attack. I eat very well when I'm at home. So I eat mostly the vegetarian, except for Wednesday, which is burger night. Uh, I I don't eat a lot of red meat, especially when I'm not working. Uh, but the eating is not as much as part of the job as one might think. It's a dream job,
Right.
right? But there is writing and research that has to be done, and that includes listening to people so I can tell their stories, which is ultimately what I'm doing.
So, since we've been talking about different kinds of tacos, one of the questions we have is, what is your take on the, I'm probably not going to say this right, birria taco craze?
Oh, was that Hallie Davison? Was that Hallie
But
Davison?
not.
Because Hallie's on here. Hallie's the Haley is the producer of Netflix's Taco Chronicles.
Ah, okay.
Hi. uh, Birria, the birria craze. Oh, okay. I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it. That being said, what is being peddled as birria isn't always birria. Uh, Birria is a preparation, not an ingredient. Uh, so any product that can withstand the cooking preparation can be birria. Birria is at its most basic level a stew in a bowl.
Okay.
Okay. You can take the meat out and put it into a tortilla and add whatever you want. You can add the cheese. As is popular now. And where that originated from, it was traditionally go but there is chicken birria, there is beef birria, but what is often peddled as beef birria is nothing more than barbacoa that is treated like birria in its coloring and its performance as the crisping on the griddle. That's very typical of Guadalajara in Mexico, and that's a breakfast dish. Here in Austin, I came across a place that outright called it barbacoa, and I was so pleased. And they were delicious. I have tried birria Perez all over the state, and I'm tired of it. I'd like to see more vegetarian and vegan options.
Interesting.
And I'd like to see a return to goat birria because I just think it tastes better. And you know, vegetarian. To get back to what I think is the next trend is the vegetarian
Vegetarian.
and vegan tacos. You know, the traditional Mexican diet is not high in muscle tissue protein, especially pre-colonial, and meat's expensive. If you don't live in the city, you know, where a taco is available on the street, taco al pastor, for example, uh, uh, you know, you're probably not going to spend a lot of time eating meat if you don't have the money for it. And vegetarian wife, and we we're very interested in seeing what's out there, and we we actively seek it out because I want to eat with her. I think it's going to be a big trend, especially now that the New York Times has written about it. I wrote about it for Texas Monthly at the end of last year, and it's going to get bigger and bigger, and I'm really happy to see that.
And I would assume corn tortillas, not flour, would be vegetarian, or would that be wrong thinking?
Most flour tortillas now are made with some shortening or vegetable friendly fat.
Okay.
Or vegetarian friendly fat. So synthetic, but it's a fat still that will work. And if you're in Texas, you're really not going to ask because you don't want to know. If you're a vegetarian, you don't want to know.
So Hallie actually had a question for you. So have you had any interesting anecdotes about how tacos are fitting into people's lives during COVID? For example, are you seeing more taco entrepreneurs? And are menus changing to meet needs?
Yes, there is more vegetarian tacos because the meat supply, I wouldn't say it is suffering a shortage anymore. It did early on during the pandemic, but now it's kind of stable. It gets wonky sometimes, but that just means that taquerias are more. They are looking back at their family traditions to see what kind of vegetarian dishes there are from their grandmothers or their great grandmothers that would fit well in a taco and be American friendly. I don't think though that American friendly matters anymore. I think people want to just eat tacos. It's been tough on the restaurant industry as a whole, but Mexican restaurants and taquerias are by and large family owned, small independent businesses that are able to adapt quickly, and there's nothing more adaptable than the taco. So tacos will survive, taquerias will survive, so I've closed. that's really unfortunate, and I have shed tears over some of them. Uh, but the taco will win through sheer determination and willpower. I mean, it's we're going to be okay, and it's all because of how adaptable tacos are and how driven and uh, ingenious Mexican food is, and those make it and know it. Uh, Not that you can know all of it ever, but there have been lots of COVID uh, adaptations. We've always had taco windows here in the States, but they're becoming more prominent. I know one taquero told me that he had this window and he hated it until COVID-19 happened. And now it's saving his life.
Right.
And another taquero from Guadalajara this time said that this birria that was really barbacoa saved his restaurant. That can't be overstressed, how important it is to be able to adapt, and not every restaurant can.
Right.
Fine dining Mexican restaurants, I'm not too sure about. It depends on the investment behind them.
Right.
But overall, yeah, everything's pretty good.
So we also had a question early on that I waited to till we were getting closer to the end. For those of us who don't have our own following, how do you suggest that we find great taquerias when we're visiting new cities or even within our own cities? What's the telltale sign of a great spot?
There is no one telltale sign. One of my bullet points pre-COVID was a full parking lot with a line out the door. I do not suggest using that as a metric of anything. But look for emphasis on a regional dish. Restaurants will advertise the heck out of what they are known for or what they want to be known for. And eat that, try it. It's probably going to be really good. Look at, I'm not so sure the best of lists online are as good as they used to be, because a lot of them, when you read the introduction, are based on aggregating data from Yelp or Google. But read a restaurant critic's take on the local taco scene. Read newspapers. I will say I do use Yelp occasionally to look at the photographs to see if is there a patio? Can I eat there if there's a patio? Yes. If there is no Yelp review, as a rule, I go there.
Interesting.
I hope that was helpful.
Yes, I think so. let me see. How are we on time?
Pardon.
Yeah, so we got about 8 minutes. So
Great.
Someone else asked, what are your favorite unusual flavor and ingredient combinations you've seen in tacos through your research and travels?
Unique. There's nothing really unique to me anymore. I'm not surprised by anything. So I'm trying to, as a layperson, what would I find unique as a Texas layperson? Yes, I have tried cricket tacos. I love them.
You saw my face,
okay.
and I was like,
oh. I prefer them as a snack in a bag with some Valentina sauce or some guacamole, and I can just pop them in my mouth as I walk, with a little squeeze of lime. So in following that, there is a tradition of pre-Hispanic ingredients in tacos, and you'll find things like maguey worms. You'll find flying ants, and those aren't bad. They just sound bad. They sound scary, but they're not. They're delicious. They're nutty or earthy. They're prepared a certain way, so maybe the eggs have a hint of garlic to them. And they're definitely going to be buttery. But I like to look for what is really emblematic of any one place. So if I'm in, I'm going to look for two types of tacos. Tacos from Puebla, which is where the majority of the Mexican immigrant population is from, and for deli mex, things like pastrami on preferably a rye tortilla, because that would just be awesome.
So going back to the vegetarian taco discussion, what would you recommend for a vegetarian vegan with limited, sorry, that screen moved, limited Spanish skills navigating taquerias? I do use phrases like soy vegetariano, sin carne, but other recommendations that are culturally respectful would be helpful.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Recommended phrases for navigating with limited Spanish skills in order to get vegan or vegetarian.
Tienes algo sin carne.
Okay.
Sin carne.
Sin carne. Okay.
Yeah.
So Leslie, you're already using
vegetales. Yeah. You could also use puro or pura verduras. Verduras means vegetables as well as vegetales. But yeah, those should help.
So we're going to end with what I had planned to sort of be my last question, and somebody else is asking that as well. So, and I know things are a little different with the current situation, but if things were
Mhm.
like they were, what's your favorite taco spot in Fort Worth?
My favorite taco spot in Fort Worth. I would say Salsa Limon, but because they bring such uniqueness to the taco, the brother and sister who own it uh, uh, were born in Oaxaca, but one parent is from the Rio Grande Valley. Uh, so they have, and they were raised in Mexico City. So they have this really great perspective, and it's found in their tacos. But Fort Worth is a taco truck city, and pre-pandemic, peri-pandemic, post-pandemic, go to a taco truck because there's always one open, uh, and then get yourself. Yes, La Banqueta is very good. That started in Dallas though, and I was really trying to think of a Fort Worth place. Uh, uh, Taco trucks like Taqueria Aldrex on the north side, um, or wherever you find one. If there's one with an interesting menu beyond your average pork, beef, chicken uh, options, check it out. Uh, why not? Uh, I know Joe T's is loved or hated, and there are lines, so I don't recommend you go there. But I do recommend that you support them somehow. Uh, they make a really good crispy taco that's fresh.
I love to eat there at lunchtime.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that at lunchtime they actually have a menu.
Really?
Yes. So, at dinner you can only get the fajitas or the enchilada dinner, right? That comes with the taco. But
Right.
during lunch, they have a full-on menu with appetizers and multiple different items that you can choose
Huh.
meals. And Saturdays and Sundays is still crazy, but if you go during the week at lunchtime, particularly as it's a little bit warmer or it's starting to get a little bit colder because people don't want to sit outside. I've been there on a Monday and never had to wait.
Oh wow.
So it's all about kind
Yeah.
of knowing when to go.
Mm-hmm.
And
For sure.
Joe Cheese is an experience that if you've never had the experience, you should have the experience because the
But be
sitting
careful.
outside and all of that is actually quite fun. But I don't like to stand in line, so I'm not a eat at Joe Cheese for dinner person. But middle of the week, lunchtime,
Great.
great time to go.
And there is, if I might add real quick, there is one place that I'm really interested in going to because they just put a puppy taco on the menu. The original Mexican Eats Cafe. Right now, it's really crazy. Everyone wants this San Antonio style puffy taco. When it dies down a little bit, I'm gonna go check it out.
That's great. So I want to say thank you for being with us tonight, and that everybody who came. Thank you also for being with us. If you would like to purchase Jose's book, you can get copies from the doc. On the screen, I have their contact information. They are doing limited service because of COVID, and it's very hard to get them on the phone. So you can order straight from their website. That would be my suggestion for you. And then today's event is part of the city's Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations, which continue through October 15th. Please visit our website, fortworthlibrary.org, for more information about additional programs for Hispanic Heritage Month. And we hope that you join us next week for our discussion with authors Jessica Luther and Kavitha Davidson about their book, Loving Sports When They Don't Love You Back. So thank you again, Jose. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you.
And everybody have a very nice evening.